In this video, I'd like to share with you an easy way to cook rice with a cast iron pot. After using this pot for nearly a year, we were pretty happy with the result and found a way that works for me every time without having to use a measuring cup. We are using a Creuset cast iron pot in this video. This pot can also be used to cook other grains. We are going to show you how to cook white rice, brown rice, and millet. But the concepts in this video can be applied to other brands' cast iron pots as well. You can also use a normal Dutch oven for cooking the perfect rice. The only difference is that the Le Creuset rice pot is paired with an inner lid, which will create the airflow to prevent water from coming out. By the way, all of the recipes in this video are just grains and water. There's no spices or anything, it's just how to cook rice essentially. You can adjust the flavor based on however you like your rice. Let's start with white rice. For white rice, if you wanted to use a measuring cup, the ratio is 1 to 1 1/4 rice to water. So if you have a cup of rice, you need a cup and a quarter of water. But normally I just use my hand to identify how much water to add to the pot. This is a method I like to call the palm method, which is popular in many Asian households. Check out this clip from the Korean drama Reply 1988. So basically you just put your hand into the pot and let the water cover your hand a little bit, and then that's the stopping point. But if you have a fat hand like mine, you can just cover the top part and let your fingers get covered, and that should probably be enough. Now the water and the rice are taken care of, I usually start with medium-high heat and leave it for 20 minutes. However, this cooking time may vary based on your stove. For example, when using a cast iron pot with an induction cooker, it can make the water boil much faster than a traditional stove. Sometimes I just need 15 minutes at medium-high heat. Anyway, you can sneak peek to see if the rice is ready and just find out what works best for you and your stove. 20 minutes later, remove the pot from the stove. At this point, I prefer to wait another 10 minutes, let it simmer to get a better texture on the rice. Now the rice is fully cooked, it's become fluffy and tender. So for a quick recap, for white rice, you have a 1 to 1 1/4 ratio of rice to water, and you cook it on medium-high heat for about 20 minutes. Let's do brown rice next. Brown rice takes a little bit longer to cook. To shorten the cooking time, I usually soak the rice overnight. But if you're in a rush, I suggest that you can soak it in warm water for at least 30 minutes before you cook it, to make sure that it's not undercooked. By the time we're going to cook the rice, we'll just need to add the same amount of water as brown rice, so a 1 to 1 ratio. Cover the lid and turn it to medium-high heat for 25 minutes. 25 minutes later, let it rest for 10 minutes before serving. Now let's take a look. The rice is fluffy and fully cooked. It turns out great. Here I was using basmati brown rice, but it can be applied for other types of brown rice using the same technique. For a quick recap, soak the rice overnight, it's a 1 to 1 water ratio, and cook on medium-high heat for 25 minutes. The next grain we have is millet. It's one of my favorite grains to cook. Millet is a whole grain that is naturally gluten-free and packed with protein, antioxidants, and nutrients. Instead of cooking it like rice, I prefer to make it more porridgey, which brings this nice, sticky texture. Step 1. Rinse the millet and let it sit in the water for 20 minutes. For 2 servings, we use a half cup of millet, and as you can see after 20 minutes, the millet has increased by 50%. This time we will need to start with boiling water. Add the millet to the pot. Because the size of millet is smaller, if you start cooking with cold water, they will sink to the bottom and will likely burn. So with the boiling water, it helps keep them afloat and help them cook more evenly. Return the water to a boil and then turn it down to low heat for 15 minutes. 15 minutes later, move the pot off the heat. Like earlier, we will simmer for another 10 minutes. And let's take a look. I really love the sticky texture and the pleasant yellow color, and it tastes great. You could make it even more delicious by adding other ingredients such as like pumpkin puree. We're going to come up with future videos using different ingredients to make different millet porridges in the future. To recap, soak the millet in the water for 20 minutes. For a porridge, the millet to water ratio is 1 to 6. Cook it on low heat for 15 minutes and then let it simmer for 10. At the end of this video, we'd like to give you our analysis on if it's worth it to buy a nice, expensive cast iron rice pot. There are a couple of benefits. Firstly, we'd like to compare a cast iron pot to a normal everyday pot. The cast iron pot cooks more evenly. Before having this pot, I always used to use a normal saucepan for the rice, but it always ended up very soggy at the bottom and undercooked on top. But I feel like this is remedied by using a cast iron pot. Next, we compare our cooking times to those of a rice cooker. Cast iron pots cook faster than electric rice cookers. It takes about 20 minutes to cook with a cast iron pot versus 35 minutes on average for electric rice cookers. The third reason, it's easy to store compared to those bulky electric rice cookers. And you can also use the cast iron pot to cook other things. It's very versatile. So the cons of buying a cast iron pot to cook your rice in are that they're expensive when compared to a rice cooker. It can cost over $200 for a cast iron pot. We can get an electric rice cooker for about like 20 bucks. But considering it'll last forever if you take care of it properly, which makes it worth it to me. Another con about using a cast iron pot for your rice is that you have to always remember to set a timer. It can be very dangerous if you forget to turn off your stove once you finish cooking. It's actually happened to me before. My rice is overcooked for about 20 minutes. As a bonus to this video, here's how it looks if you're curious to see. Luckily, nobody was harmed and the pot was fine. But I highly recommend that you always set a timer first before putting your pot on the stove and always be attentive while cooking. Voila! Thanks for watching until the end. We hope that you enjoyed this video and learned more about cast iron rice pots and how to cook different grains with them. If you're interested to see how we cooked other grains, feel free to leave us a comment below.